All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life, liberty, and the
If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Make America great again.
The Big Mig.
Welcome back to the Big Mig Show, and of course, good morning. I'm your host, Lance Migliaccio, and my co-host, George Valentine, will be joining us in a minute. Of course, you know what this show is all about. It's about truth, because if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And, you know, you can count on us on this show every single episode to bring you the real stories. It's not mainstream media. It's how we do it. If you don't like the truth, you might be at the wrong spot. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up, comment, share, and subscribe button. And of course, if you'd like to sponsor the show, you can hit us up over at info@thebigmig.com. Do a quick shout out for one of our sponsors. You know, we like our crypto. Of course, we've also got the #1 crypto show on Rumble, the Crypto Power Hour, 7 a.m. Wednesdays and Fridays. But gold and silver also a big part of diversification. I'm holding up the Prepper Bar, the 62.2 gram Prepper Bar, perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 separate denominations. You kind of see when I tilt it there. You can see the little small, a medium, and a large. Of course, mined and minted in the great US of A, and I don't care whether you're using it for diversification, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade. Prep Bar makes a perfect gift for everybody. There isn't anybody that doesn't like gold and silver. Great gift for holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, you name it, whatever works for you. At the end of the day, you can head over to thebigmigbar.com. That's right, thebigmigbar.com. You can use that QR code there. George makes it easy. Take a snapshot. Don't go there till after the show. Got a great and exciting interview for you today, so stick around. Use all caps Prepper for that discount, PREPPR. That's PREPPR. 10% off on the silver, 5% off on the gold, thebigmigbar.com.
All right, no singing because we got to go. But Lance, real quick, I got to give a shout out because I found out we have a new listener, right? She's 84 years old. She's from Wayne, New Jersey. She goes by the name of Barbara. She was a liberal Democrat, believe it or not, but her daughter's been working so hard overtime, red pilling her.
Wow.
And I was on the phone with her. I was happened to be on the phone, and she goes, yeah, Epstein didn't kill himself. I was like, keep watching the show.
You know,
you know why? No, she got it from watching the show.
Did she?
Yeah. I'm like, well, just keep watching. We'll keep teaching.
Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We always love our new listeners and subscribers. We appreciate it. We're one of the fastest growing shows on Rumble right now. We've got the #1 crypto show. It's all because of you guys. It's not us. We try to bring you the information. Anyway, I want to dig right in because he doesn't have a tremendous amount of time. Avi Loeb, and you guys have seen him. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's been on just about every possible show you can think of, constantly doing interviews. He's a professor of science at Harvard University. Best-selling author. I lost count of how many books he's written. I made a list. I started to make a list. It just kept going. He's topped the New York Times and Wall Street Journal's, bestsellers list. Earned his PhD in physics from Hebrew University of Jerusalem at age 24. Was a long-term member of Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study. Published over 1,000 papers. Yeah, he didn't spend too much time doing that. 1,000. Black holes, early stars, extraterrestrial life, cosmology. He directs Harvard's Institute for Theory and Computation since 2007 and the Galileo Project since 21. Served as the longest chair of Harvard's astronomy department and founding director of the Black Hole Initiative. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. He's been on TED Talk, you name it. He's an expert. He's been a White House advisor. No reason to keep going on. I could probably go on for another half hour on him. Let's get him in here, George.
All right. Welcome to the Big Mig Show, Professor Avi Loeb.
Thanks for having me. You could have saved time by mentioning that I'm a farm boy. I was born on a farm.
Where?
That's funny. It's interesting. Somehow I didn't read that, but you are quite the academic. I'm kind of blown away. It's tough enough to get one book completed. How many books have you written, Avi?
9 by now. But most of the time, I actually, there is one that is about to come out within a year or so about an expedition that I led to the Pacific Ocean 2 years ago. There will also be a Netflix documentary about it. So just check out for that. It was a very interesting expedition. But every day I write on medium.com and also post a video on my YouTube channel. So you can follow up about the latest exciting developments. Every day is a new day. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I jog at sunrise, but I also write an essay that many people are interested about often.
Yeah, we've got the links. We'll share that in our chat. We'll share with the audience. I grabbed your link from Medium. But, it's interesting. I've got to ask people, I always start with this. What got you started down this vertical? Because, it's really unusual. You're extremely knowledgeable. But were you always interested in this background when a child? Maybe was that?
No. I as a child I used to collect eggs every afternoon. I used to drive a tractor to the hills of the village and read philosophy books. I was interested in the biggest questions about our existence. And then in Israel, where I was born, it's obligatory to serve in the military. So I went, I parachuted, I drove tanks. I was in a special program that actually we were privileged to visit all the sections of the military. And then after that, develop projects that are useful for defense. And at the time, President Reagan started the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, and General Abramson came to visit Israel, and I presented the project to him, and he really liked it. And so it was the first funded international project of Star Wars. And I came to Washington. I visited Washington every few months. We got a few $1 million a year throughout that time. And then I visited in one of those trips. I visited Princeton, the Institute for Advanced Study, where Albert Einstein used to be professor just a couple of decades earlier. As a result, they offered me a 5-year fellowship under the condition that I'll switch to astrophysics. So, I ended up doing astrophysics because it was a lucrative position. And then I went to Harvard and they offered me tenure within 2 years. And again, I wasn't planning, I had plan B, going back to the farm or going back to doing something else. But there I was, a tenured professor at Harvard. And, it's just like an arranged marriage. But I realized that I'm married to my true love because I can address important questions using science, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've watched quite a few of your interviews, and what's really interesting is we're in an interesting time that our governments seem to be, for the first time, acknowledging the existence of other life forms, maybe UAPs, UAVs. We've seen some footage. But the question is, Avi, I'm going to start off with this only because it's the title of the show. Are we alone, Avi? What do you think?
I don't think we are alone. I think, many people who remain lonely throughout their life are those that are arguing we don't have a partner. So they are not seeking any partner. They are not engaged in going to dating sites. They stay alone. And of course, we can adapt that approach and not search. Simply assume that there is nothing, that we are at the top of the food chain, that Elon Musk is the most accomplished space entrepreneur that ever lived since the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. I don't think so. There are 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone, if you look at the stars at night, and about 1/10 of them have a planet roughly the size of the Earth at the same separation. And if you think that we came out of a soup of chemicals on this Earth, then it's quite possible that there are many like us out there. This is just, a simple assumption that we are not special, unique, which is a good assumption to make. We are not, humans used to think that we are the center of the universe. No, that's not the case. We are not at the center. And that was a big mistake made by the Vatican It took them 350 years to admit that Galileo Galilei was right. And it was a bad public relations stunt for them because, it took them a long time to admit that. But, with all the footage we have from satellites and spacecraft, it's clear that the Earth moves around the sun. The Earth is not at the center, not only not at the center of the solar system, but even the sun is moving around the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy is one out of a trillion galaxies out there. There is nothing special about us. And if you adapt that approach, basically a sense of modesty, religious people very often have a sense of humility because they believe in something more powerful than us. And in modern science and technology, and people have this hubris. Maybe we are at the top of the food chain. Maybe we are the only intelligent beings out there. I don't think so. We should search, and if we don't find anything, let's say for several decades, if we put a lot of money in the search, or if the government doesn't have any evidence, then we could say, okay, we haven't found anything, but we didn't really engage in the search. And my colleagues in academia, they're willing to put more than $10 billion to the search for microbes. And my response to that is, when you go on blind dates, you better aim high, not low. When you find a dating partner, going and finding your dating partner to be a microbe, it might be really nice to meet them. But if you find someone more intelligent than you are, you can learn something new. It would bring you to a better place. They could teach us.
Lance, hold on, Lance. Lance, stop. Avi, I don't know if you've been to dating sites lately or within a few years. You're equating dating sites to Are We Alone with aliens. And I'm going to say this, because maybe that's a good analogy, because are aliens catfishing like they do on dating sites and they don't look the same? Listen, we're not alone. That's a fact. The government's been hiding it.
Just recently we know that former President Obama made a statement.
Yeah, and he retracted it too, though.
We're not alone. But I do think
that he retracted it. He changed his.
Well, yeah. I mean, the point is, you should ask, where is the beef? Okay, if he makes that statement, there is no substance. But if the truth is that government does have some information, President Trump would be the only president to actually tell us reliably what this might be, and I would be, of course, delighted to learn more about it and help government.
I don't know if they're going to believe him so much because they're upset with the Epstein files. Nobody knows what to believe anymore. But we can't rely on the government to tell us anything, because look, they say we went to the moon. I believe we didn't go to the moon. And you look at, you're a professor, maybe you know the answer to this one. The sun is burning, right? It's got fire on it. Yes. But yet there's no oxygen in space, and fire needs oxygen to burn. So how's it burning?
No, it's not. It doesn't need the oxygen to burn. No, because
special fire.
No, it's just like fusion reactors. The idea is that hydrogen atoms, when you combine them, they create energy if you make, for example, heavier elements out of them. And so it's like fuel. The sun is made mostly of hydrogen, a little bit of helium, but mostly hydrogen. And it's so hot in the center that hydrogen atoms bump into each other and fuse. This is called fusion, nuclear fusion. We were not able to imitate that reliably in our own laboratories. So we don't have fusion reactors. We have fission reactors. The nuclear reactors we have are based on breaking very big nuclei into smaller pieces. You also gain energy in that process. But having a fusion reactor that behaves like the sun is more challenging. The sun does it. Okay, so it burns hydrogen by fusing hydrogen atoms together. Why does it need a high temperature to do that? Because each nucleus of hydrogen, which is basically a proton, it's electrically charged. A proton has a positive charge. And when you bring two protons close to each other, they repel each other because they have the same charge. And so you need a high temperature in order for them to run into each other and fuse, overcoming the repulsion. Once they fuse, then they end up producing energy. But you need a high temperature just because of the electric repulsion between them. And so that is the reason you need high temperatures in the context of nuclear fusion.
Interesting. Appreciate that breakdown, because I was unaware of that, so that helps me a lot. Of course, I'm not a scientist.
But the sun will die. Yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. The sun will eventually die. I once mentioned it to a receptionist at an optometrist office. She was commenting that things change all the time, and I said, "Look, everything changes. The sun will die one day." And she said, "I cannot believe that. It's against my religion." And I said, "Look, this is a fact, because the sun is a nuclear reactor. It has a finite amount of fuel. And in 7.6 billion years, it will consume all of its fuel. And at that point, it will not be bright anymore. It will basically cool down. It will expand first, and then the core of it will cool down. So the envelope of the sun will actually engulf the Earth. And obviously, life will not be possible on Earth, because the Earth will spiral to the core of the sun, and together with the moon.
Unless another sun takes its place.
No, they're too far away. Nothing.
Unlikely.
So in 7.6,
you never know, though. Anything's possible. A new sun comes into the system. Isn't it like a star, whatever? In essence, a sun.
We should take responsibility to our hands and just leave the Earth before that happens. That is my point. We should. The Earth is not forever. That's the base.
Where are we gonna go, Avi?
Oh, I would love to go to space. I would. If I were responsible for that futuristic mission, I would build a space platform that can accommodate humans. Like you see in science fiction movies. But I think if you put, for example, we invest $2.4 trillion every year in military budgets, worldwide. $2.4 trillion. A third of that is going towards, the U.S. Military budget. But suppose we were to invest $1 trillion a year in space exploration, instead of trying to kill other people or prevent other people from killing us. If we were to say, okay, well, this is a priority. We want to go to space. Let's put $1 trillion a year on that. Then I think within this century, we will have a space platform because we will have the best architects, the best technologists, the best scientists working on it. It would be like the Manhattan Project on steroids. And that kind of a platform will carry humans. It will be a habitat that gives you everything you need, sort of like a big city in space.
And I think
wait, Lance, hold on. I gotta jump in before I forget, please.
I think you have to invest in the future. And I think what's concerning to me, Avi, what is concerning to me is that we have invested quite a bit of money in NASA, but the money doesn't go into the budget that they claim it goes into. It goes into a black hole of black budgets.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, well, not only bureaucracy, the fact is a lot of that money gets funneled into black operations that the U.S. government doesn't want to talk about. We saw massive amounts get committed into our alleged, interaction in space that we supposedly went to the moon. Of course, we now looked at that video in media. We're still trying to figure out who took that picture for the first man to step on the moon,
But look at what happened with SpaceX. Now it's launching many missions and doing much better than NASA did, simply because you have entrepreneurship that is much more lean and focused. 100%. And I completely agree with you that bureaucratic organizations tend to become more and more complex, and therefore they lose their agility. And every now and then we need to sort of rejuvenate them. And that definitely is the case. This administration was trying to reorganize NASA and other agencies because of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Correct. Go ahead, George.
So, Avi, you said maybe we should give up some of our military budget and use it for space. Well, if we do that and our military is not strong, then we're going to have bad people maybe come and try to destroy us, and we will never be able to get to space or even come at Israel. So we need that military budget. We got to protect Israel too, right, Avi? Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely.
All right, so we can't give up that military budget.
No.
But if hold on. But if we get rid of all that wasteful spending, like the money they're wasting in Minnesota, California, Ohio, then we can probably maybe get to space in that sense. We got to cut out all that wasteful money.
It's a question of priorities, you see, and I'm not naive to think that the policymakers will reallocate $1 trillion a year to space exploration. But I do believe that if we find evidence for another technological civilizations that did it already, that will change our priorities. So that's the way I think we will change the way we think. Suppose during a State of the Union address, President Trump comes forward and says, we have evidence that we are not the only technological civilization, in our galaxy. That will definitely change the mindset of a lot of people. And that could lead, in principle, to an investment of the type that I just mentioned.
No, I agree. Avi, do you have any concerns? Some people, there's lots of theories online where some people say that intelligent life forms from other galaxies or other universes don't like to expose that they're there, meaning that they don't want other people to know.
Yes.
Do you have any concern that as we send these probes out and otherwise, that a superior, entity from another planet might look and say, hey, these guys, we can go over and snatch their planet. They don't have the technology we have.
Do
you have any fear of that? Do you lay in bed thinking about that occasionally?
Definitely. And, one explanation for why we haven't seen it so clearly so far is that they look at us and say, well, they're not that intelligent. We don't need to engage with them. They are not posing any threat. They're not doing anything useful. They're just fighting each other on this planet. So that's possible. And there is this scenario that talks about the dark forest hypothesis, where, when you live in a dark forest, you're worried about predators. So you're very careful not to make a sound, but you do listen to everything around you. So if we engage in going out to interstellar space, we really need to get as much intelligence as possible before we make a sound. And we need to do it in a way that nobody would threaten us. By the way, for about a century, we've been broadcasting radio signals without much thought about it. And it's possible, now these signals are out to 100 light years because they propagated the speed of light. So they went to the distance that light travels in 100 years. There aren't many stars there, but once they reach about 1,000 light years, let's say in the next millennium, there is a significant probability that someone will come and check us out because they would realize that we exist. And we need to be prepared for that. The planetary defense right now is all about protecting Earth from rocks. And my point is, at some point, we might need to worry about the technological gadgets because,
like the disc defibrillator.
Sorry.
Yeah, I read a lot of information on the dark forest as I started to dig into that, and of course, it is concerning because you have to think about the technological advancement of maybe another intelligent group somewhere out in space, this universe or a universe farther away. Because, of course, we don't know if they can use, black holes to jump, if there's other issues. But speaking of rocks, there was one that really blew up, and you were out there a lot. I saw a lot of your videos. The anomalies of 3I Atlas, natural comet, maybe alien mothership. You talked about 15 very specific anomalies that didn't seem to make sense.
Right.
Talking about its size, its unusual brightness, its retrograde orbit, the anti-tail jets. Maybe alien tech. I mean, let's talk to the audience. I've got a picture of. I don't know if this is. I believe this is a artist rendition of what it's supposed to look like. But in this case, it looks more like a rock. But
the interstellar thing.
Yeah, and my point would be a really smart group of intelligent life forms might cloak their vehicle as a rock. They might want to make it look.
No, this is not. By the way, this is an artist illustration. This is not a real image, and it's actually not of 3I Atlas. This is what an artist thought of the 1I Oumuamua, which was the first interstellar object discovered back in 2017. And the one unusual fact about this first one, Oumuamua, was that it was at least 10 times longer than it was wide because the amount of sunlight reflected from it changed by a factor of 10 as it was tumbling every 8 hours. So the best model to fit the variation of reflected sunlight was that of a flat object, like a pancake, not a cigar-shaped object. Mm-hmm. But this artist decided to illustrate it just like a cigar. But you can tell that it's a very unusual rock if it's a rock. And moreover, it was pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing any evaporation, no gas or dust around it. So the question was, what is pushing it? And I suggested it might be technological. It might be pushed by reflecting sunlight. if it's a very thin object. And in fact, 3 years later, the same telescope in Hawaii that discovered Oumuamua, Oumuamua means a scout in the Hawaiian language. The same telescope discovered another object near Earth that was pushed away by reflecting sunlight. And that turned out to be a rocket booster, an upper stage of a lunar lander from 1966 that was launched in 1966 by NASA. And here you have an example of an object behaving like Oumuamua, but actually being technological in origin. So we still don't know what Oumuamua was, but it was very puzzling. And then we have found 2 additional objects. The most recent one is 3I Atlas, just this past year, on July 1st, 2025, it was discovered, and it was much bigger than Oumuamua. Oumuamua was roughly the size of a football field, 100 meters in size. 3I Atlas is 2.6 kilometers in diameter, roughly the size of a city. And so why would we see such a much bigger object as the third object that we find? And then moreover, it was aligned, its path was aligned with the ecliptic plane, the plane of the planets around the sun, and to within 5 degrees. That's a chance of 1 in 500. And it raised the question of whether it's on a reconnaissance mission just to spy over the planets in the solar system. It will pass near Jupiter on March 16th, 2026, and we should check out whether it releases any probes to a bound orbit in Jupiter. In fact, I suggested that Juno, the spacecraft that we have around Jupiter, will monitor it, and Representative Luna, Anna Paulina Luna, supported that in a letter to NASA, and are planning to do that. And so we should see what Juno finds. And we have about 40 images from the Hubble Space Telescope taken over the past 2 months that imply that this object has 3 jets coming from its nucleus that are equally separated from each other by 120 degrees on the sky. Very unusual for some random comet,
Well, I was going to say something. That picture reminds me of the asteroid from Armageddon, or whatever.
Yeah, you know, there is a book called The Rendezvous with Rama by I don't know if you've seen it, but
so you said there's 3 engines coming out of this thing?
Not this one, but 3I Atlas. This one is the first.
Okay. This was a mistake. The image, George.
No, I got that part. I got it. I got it. Yeah. So 3 engines. Where's it at right now in the universe?
Right now, it's at a distance of a few times the Earth-Sun separation. It's on its way towards Jupiter. And
it's not coming to us?
No, it was closest to the sun on October 29th. It was closest to Earth on December 19th. And now it's moving out of the solar system. And, it had a lot of unusual features. For example, there was nickel without iron detected around it. And usually nickel comes together with iron, except for industrially produced nickel alloys that we use in aerospace applications. And so the question was whether that's a technological signature. Also, the object had a jet directed from it towards the sun. This is an anti-tail. You don't see that very often in comets. And the question is, why would this object have this unusual jet in addition to the 3 small ones that I mentioned before around the nucleus? So it has a lot of anomalies, and that's why I suggested monitoring it.
It's interesting.
They probably, when they went by to Earth, they probably look at these crazies. We're not stopping here. Let's find somewhere else.
When I see this, I always think, probe possibility, right? Are they surveilling us? Is it a Trojan horse?
Yes.
Was it meant to look like one thing and it's something completely different?
Right.
You got the letter. The CIA will neither confirm nor deny the existence or non-existence of records pertaining to interstellar object 3I Atlas, which is an interesting position to take because we know it exists, but they won't get into any dialogue as if somehow they're denial. And George, you can throw up the letter if you want.
Well, I think they were intrigued by my work and my public discussions on this object, and so they were trying to make sure that it's not a black swan event that could be potentially harmful. And they had conversations about it, but they don't want to release those records because they are worried that it will trigger some panic in the public. That's my guess. And it's also clear that it was not the discussions in governments were not limited to the US, because on December 19th, there was the final press conference of Vladimir Putin, where he summarized the year 2025. And one of the journalists asked him about 3i Atlas. What does the intelligence agencies tell him about it? And he had, very informed opinions about 3i Atlas with a lot of relevant statements. And so that means, I mean, this question was definitely planted. You can't imagine a journalist just asking that without previous agreement with Putin about it. So it's clear that the object was discussed both in the US, in Russia, and elsewhere. And at the end of the day, they decided that it's most likely natural object, a comet, so they don't need to alert the public to it. But I think it's the first time that an interstellar object or an astronomical object is being discussed in government. I've never heard of such a thing before.
So a question from the audience here. Where is it? Jess Heat said something. So that the Atlas thing, wherever that passed us, do you think it might slingshot and come back at us? Or
no, I think it's very unlikely based on its current path, because it follows a path being shaped by gravity alone to within a very high precision so far.
But it has engines, right? You said motors, engines?
Well, they might, if it's artificial, if it's technological, maybe they are used just to stabilize it, if it's a spacecraft. But we don't see significant maneuvering. It could have been, it was possible for it to maneuver in the past. If it wanted to come to Earth, it would have done it earlier because it was closer to Earth before. So I'm not really worried about it coming back. By the way, it could have come back even by passing very close to Jupiter. If it were to just come extremely close to Jupiter, then the gravity of Jupiter would have deflected it enough for it to come back to Earth. But it's not coming that close to Jupiter based on what we see so far. So I wouldn't worry about that. The only thing I would worry about is if it released any probes that make their way to Earth or to Jupiter eventually. That's the only thing I would check for. And if there is nothing unusual, maybe it was a natural object and we just need to focus our attention on the next object that comes along.
Yeah. So we know what Putin's position is. He seems to want more disclosure. Obama, I'm not a fan, but at the end of the day, he admitted that he asked about UAPs and UFOs and kind of acknowledged that, he'd look for those answers. I don't think he's the only president that did it. I've heard lots of things from people that were around Nixon and Reagan. Of course, you walk in as president of the United States and now all of a sudden you've got access to things. I'm sure general curiosity goes, hey, by the way, is Area 51 legitimate? Are there aliens? Like, I'm sure you asked some questions you couldn't ask before. But, I'm always bothered by the fact that the government thinks it has the right to not disclose this information. They're so hesitant to allow information, whether they're questions about crash sites, UAP videos that we know our own military has multiple times engaged them. We've heard some stories about, underwater aircraft.
Right.
I don't want to say aircraft, but I guess underwater vehicles that they have engaged with, the Navy has at high speeds that don't match anything here on this planet, not any technology of a foreign government. Why do you think confirming extraterrestrials, why is the government so hesitant? And what do you think? Do you think it really changes politics or maybe priorities if they have to actually go out and say, no doubt about it, they exist. Here's a couple of the little guys we found in a crash site. Here's some technology. Again, I'm not asking for national security interest where they, deconstructed some vehicle. I'm looking for them to stop treating me as I'm a child, as the rest of the American public.
Well, that's exactly what Representative Luna said in the latest hearing in Congress just 6 months ago. They should stop treating the public as children. But the main reason would be as follows. They might not know what these objects are. Okay, so if they were to come publicly and share the data, it will indicate that they're not capable of fulfilling their duties. We are spending nearly $1 trillion on the defense budget, the budget of the Pentagon in 2026. and they're getting huge sums of money, and their duty is to figure out what is in the sky, because it could be a national security threat. There might be other, adversarial nations spying on us, and they just see objects they cannot figure out. So they're not fulfilling their job. How many people do you know are willing to admit publicly that they're not fulfilling their job when they get $1 trillion a year?
Every one of them in the government.
Yeah,
and
I'm
so-
a believer
and so-
in Ayn Rand. I like to say take responsibility for your actions. But you're right. That normally cowards and people that are insecure or unable to acknowledge. You should be able to admit when you don't know something, and you should be able to admit, yeah, we're not doing a good job with this. But that's not what they projected to the American public. They act as if every department is perfect.
Right. But because nobody looks, you see, if you classify information enough, nobody looks over your shoulders. Even Congress people cannot look over your shoulders and say that you're not performing well. And so that's a trick that is very common in government, where people who are not performing their job, basically they are unable to figure out things that they're supposed to figure out. If they classify it enough, nobody would know about it, and therefore nobody would scrutinize them. That's the technique. So that may be one very simple reason for why we don't see those data. And also they can always argue, maybe, these are some adversarial nations that are doing things beyond our capabilities. But my point is, there is data from 50 years ago, presumably, and that is completely irrelevant to what is happening right now, because the technologies that existed 50 years ago are not being used anymore. And so that kind of a data that is old, and we can argue about what is old enough. I would argue that 50 years is definitely sufficiently old. It may be even 30 years. It may be even 20 years. The point is, old data that is not relevant to today's technologies should be shared with the public, should be shared with scientists, just to see if there is something else out there. And the other question to ask is whether everyone reports to the president honestly. Perhaps there are things that the president is not aware of because they are not being reported to him. And so I just don't know how much is being hidden behind the veil of secrecy. There may be some information that is being withheld within corporations outside government. And so
isn't that
the point is,
Avi, I want to talk about your Galileo project. To me, that's kind of, because you're using AI, to detect anomalous sky objects, which of course exposes it. What's the reaction been from the government and maybe other agencies that maybe aren't thrilled that you're doing this? Because of course you might identify things that the regular public would never know about, because maybe NASA or the Department of Defense determines, let's not talk about it. Maybe they'll miss it. I know there's a lot of amateur astronomers out there that catch things, but this is a pretty serious project you've got going on here.
Yeah, so I actually did speak in front of a congressional committee about this. And what I said is that I will be happy to share anything, any data with the US government, so that they can, obviously they are focused on human-made technologies. For me, those are boring. I don't really care much about it. So our interests do not overlap. Our interests complement each other. So I would be very happy if the Pentagon would take advantage of the work that I'm doing with the Galileo project, because they can employ the same type of sensors and use the same AI algorithms that we employ to help them in figuring out objects that are of national security importance. So I think the effort that I'm doing will never get wasted if I know that it's being used by government. And in fact, I'm completely happy for a partnership with government where we will basically share with them what we are seeing. And obviously, we care only about things that are not human-made. And if we see such things, and I think that would be a very important step forward for science.
Avi,
Lance,
I'm ready to redirect the Somalian Leering Center money to you now, and all the other
not
money
enough.
that they stole in Minneapolis. I'm ready to claw that back and give it to you instead, because at least I'd feel like I'm getting something for my money rather than what those Somalians have done with our money and many others in defrauding the government.
All right, hold on.
Great opportunity. Yes, George.
All right, so we see with all our technology today, we have, I don't know, $80 million fighter jet for one. Whatever, all that stuff, all the cameras, but yet this is the best picture they can get on a fighter jet for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there is much better data, Jordan.
Or this is the picture that they give out to the public where they alter the picture to give to us. I mean, you tell me. I know they have better stuff.
I think the best is hidden. The best information is not out publicly, and there must be some people who know about it, and I would love to see it. These are not convincing photographs. They're not conclusive, and so that's all they're willing to share right now, and I'm sure they have much better data. Look, think about data from satellites. They can resolve objects that are a few centimeters or tens of centimeters easily right now, and so if they see an anomalous object, they must have satellite footage because they monitor the Earth, right? And we have never seen a satellite footage of a UAP, but the fact that it exists was mentioned by Radcliffe, who is now at a very prominent position as well. He mentioned it just 4 years ago in an interview that there is some satellite data, but we've never seen it. And so I'm sure there is much better data than that. And when Obama was talking about objects that we don't understand, he meant exactly that. But we haven't seen those photos.
Here's a question I have. There's been a lot of talks lately. We've seen it online. A lot of people calling out. There's even a video that floated around. Do you think there's any intelligent life forms, maybe of an origin of an ET origin, meaning an extraterrestrial, that are living in our own oceans? Because we've heard a lot about vehicles, high speed, the Navy's engaged with. We've heard about exits from our own water where they'll exit the water and go into space. So my question is, what do you think about the existence? Is that legitimate, or do you think this is just some kind of a redirection or conspiracy? What's your thoughts?
No, I think it's a real possibility that we should explore because most of the ocean floor was never surveyed. It's huge, 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with oceans, and we don't explore that, and we don't know what lies down there. And actually, Representative Congressman Tim Burchett was talking about the fact that he heard some very tantalizing information about the objects that were detected by the Navy and are not understood under the ocean. And so they move in ways, they're very big, very fast, and we just don't know what they are. So definitely this is an important avenue for future research, not just looking at the atmosphere of Earth and trying to find unidentified objects flying through the atmosphere, but also looking through the oceans and trying to find the objects that are deep inside, and they may actually be transmedium. They move from the ocean into the atmosphere and vice versa. And so there are reports about things like that, but they need to be investigated more seriously.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna switch.
I think they are investigating. I think they just keep it from us because I know for a fact there's alien life that our government has been interacting with them. I can't tell you guys how, but I just know it. So that's why, and Lance, we were talking about this the other day. That's why you see the governments all over have been slowly releasing information about aliens, because it's gonna come a time, whether it be this year, next year, or sooner, that they're just gonna acknowledge the existence of alien life. Because if they just let it out, people will freak out.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? People freak out over the Epstein files. They're going to freak out over aliens.
No, I'm not sure. It depends on what.
I'm sure.
No, because just think about it. When the Vatican didn't want people to know that we are not at the center of the universe, that didn't cause much disruption. The fact that we are moving around the sun instead of the sun moving around the Earth. It was not disruptive. I think, just think about it. You sit at the dinner table with your family and you found a tennis ball in your backyard. So you know that you have a neighbor, okay? Would you tell your family about it? Will your family members freak out at dinner if you told them, I found a tennis ball, we have a neighbor? I think it's the appropriate approach is to actually tell your family about it, because the neighbor may show up at the front door one day, or you might see something in the street that will affect your home. You have to tell everyone about it. You can't hide this information. It makes no sense to prevent the public from knowing it.
I agree. Let me ask you a question. There's a theory that's been floating around that a lot of people think part of this lead up, this partial release, has got to do with some sort of an operation where they want to come out with a major announcement, but in a way they're going to manipulate it that it's not going to really be truthful. Some people have mentioned programs that use holographic projectors and otherwise to create, anomalous, appearances of things. You think there's any truth in that? Because some people are so untrusting of the government at this point. Lots of people don't know what to do. Doesn't matter what their political beliefs are. Do you think there's any intent? Have you seen anything that would maybe confirm or deny that?
Well, you see, in the context of scientific evidence, we should be able to see the facts. If the government has some data, we should be able to see it. If they have materials, if they have evidence for biologics that some people claim they have, if they bring this up, we will be able to see it. We will be able to examine it. Many scientists can look into it. And when you have many different people looking at the same data, they can tell you what they think about it. It's just like the vetting system that you have in courts, and except that in science, many independent people can look at the same thing, study it. You can have a lot of independent opinions, just like you go for a medical exam. When you have multiple opinions, you get you trust better the decision that is about to be made. So I think if they share the information in a way that can be analyzed by scientists like myself, you can rest assured that I will tell you everything I know and whether I think it's likely or not that what they're saying is right. And so the proof is in the pudding. The proof, they have to show us something that will convince us. They can't just talk about it. Now, in the case of, now we have AI that can manipulate images, manipulate a lot of information. I myself suffered from it because 2 months ago, there was a group of people that decided to put a YouTube channel that imitates me with a video and audio that sound just like me. And this misinformation convinced me to engage with social media. Before that, I completely avoided social media. So now I have my own YouTube channel, and I have outlets where I basically say what I think, and people can trust those. And I will use these platforms to remove all the fake content. But if the government, for example, if the government comes, but if the government comes out with what they claim is evidence that we can easily check whether it's fake or not by looking at it from different angles, checking, there should be independent lines of evidence that argue for the same thing. If they say that something happened at a particular location, we can go to that location and verify it. There are many ways by which we can check if what they're saying is correct. So it's not just a matter of words. Like in the case of Obama's podcast interview, he just gave us words. When people tell us stories, it's just words. I don't really put much faith in that. I want to see the actual material or photographic evidence before I say anything.
It's interesting. I want to talk about this for a minute for the audience, because we talk about AI on our show a lot.
Yes.
We talk about quantum computing. We talk about a lot of that as it impacts even on our crypto show. AI is interesting. We've had these at different times in our history. We've had these massive technological jumps that are kind of unexplained, where all of a sudden the government's got a new technology. George mentioned the discombobulator earlier, which was a directed energy weapon that Donald Trump has decided to call the discombobulator, given it one of his very scientific names. But AI, we've seen this massive jump. People really are underestimating it. I've been doing a lot of stuff in AI, looking at arbitrage bots and things to do with coding in Rust for high-speed frequency trading, yada, yada. But it's interesting because you mentioned in one of your articles about AI represents life as we do not know it, which, of course, would parallel potential encounters with extraterrestrials. And the thing about AI, it's evolving in kind of a way, if you've seen Claude Code and how these communities of, active agents, super agents, give them whatever name you want, are rapidly advancing in a way that they almost seem like they're alien intelligence, kind of an advancement. My question is do you have any reason to believe that this AI is moving even quicker in the fact into its own kind of alien thing as compared to cosmic ones. What's your thought on that? Because AI sure is moving quickly, man.
Yeah, so I do think it's moving very quickly. And in fact, I see it firsthand because AI agents right now are able to perform better than students and postdocs in academia. You know, if you want to get a task done, I realized it 2 weeks ago. I had a calculation that I wanted to be done. I asked my postdoc, and he used the best AI system available and got it done within 10 minutes. 6 years ago, when I asked my undergraduate student to do the same thing, it took a week for that undergraduate student to do the job and then a month to write the papers. We had a paper within 2 days on this thing. So clearly AI agents are performing now even better than students or postdocs in academia, in research projects. And that will only get better. But here is the limitation of AI that people don't talk about. It's being trained on content associated with humans. Okay, so it basically is trying to imitate us. That's the way we constructed it, as a digital mirror to the way we think, and it's doing better than us because it's made of silicon chips and not of flesh and blood, you know, like our brain is. And so it's doing better, it's faster, it's more capable, and it will do even better in the future. However, think about the training data set. The training data set will stay limited to our experiences. I mean, AI may generate some training data set. The AI systems or agents will speak to each other, but it will all be, in one way or another, things that they learned from what happens on Earth, based on what humans told them. And that's it. Now, when
AI talking to other AI and having discussion about creating its own language.
Yeah, they can do that, but again, the training data set it cannot be improved. And you know, when I had my girls, I have 2 daughters, and when they were young, their training data set was limited to home, and you could tell that they are not very knowledgeable. They thought that they are the center of the universe, and then they went to the kindergarten and realized there is a whole new world out there. So my point is, we as scientists, if we discover, for example, alien technologies or a visit by some interstellar objects, we can expand our training data set beyond what we find here on Earth. That's an opportunity to learn, and that's something that AI will never be able to teach us because it's beyond the experiences on Earth. The AI cannot imagine what is out there because it was never exposed to it. So my point is, forget about so the AI agents.
Wait, what about if you train AI about space and everything? Maybe AI can develop something to get us there.
No, but it needs the data. It needs the data.
We put the data in there. You give it the data, access to the data.
If you let AI operate telescopes, if you let AI explore space, then it will behave like a human and could learn. But my point is,
a step further. How about all the technology and all the maybe the information the government has to date? Let's say, for example, that they have recovered all sorts of crashed vehicles, all sorts of alien life forms. What if we open up the door for AI to have full access to all of that?
Yeah.
Now, to me, that would be the real jump, wouldn't it?
Yes, that will definitely open our eyes. You know, the main limitation of humans is not just in the brain power. It's also that we are easily swayed by emotions, by jealousy, by our ego. And that actually is very harmful. If you look at academia, the progress is very slow because it's all about ego. And when someone says something different or explores a new path, that someone is often being bullied and suppressed. And I've seen that quite often. And it's really unfortunate because we could make advances much more quickly. And perhaps AI, which doesn't have those failure modes of humans, will advance much faster because of that. It would look at data without any emotional investment, and the ego will not play that much of a role in deciding whether to explore it or not.
All right, we have a limited amount of time. We're going to have to get you back on, Avi. I've got lots of questions still. We definitely want to have you back here. The audience loves you, of course. Let's take a minute, though. What's the new book called? give him your social media. George, if we could put up his Medium stack and kind of give him some exposure there on that. Whatever we can do to support you, his YouTube channel, whatever we've got, let's get it up there so the audience can see it. Put the links in the chat. So, Avi, the new book, when's it going to come out? And let's leak. Can you leak the title, or am I putting you under too much pressure here?
No, it's not fully decided. It's up to MIT Press to decide about the final title. But the temporary title is Expedition to Other Worlds. That it basically relates to the expedition that I took to the Pacific Ocean to find interstellar material. From an object that impacted the Earth in 2014. It will probably come out around January 2027, in a year from now. There will be a Netflix documentary, as I mentioned, even before that, hopefully. Other than that, obviously, there are all these essays and YouTube videos that I'm posting routinely about advances, and they explore many different topics, not just what we discussed about, including AI, including what we know about the universe. As I said, I hope that one day in a State of the Union address, we'll hear about the state of the universe as well.
Yeah, that would absolutely be good news. But listen, let me thank you very much for coming on. I know you have a hard stop, so I don't want to drag you out. But again, we'll have to reschedule.
We're going to need more than an hour next time.
Man, I'm telling you what. There's so many things. I wanted to bring up the Loeb scale. I wanted to talk about exoplanet atmospheres.
I'll be delighted to come again. And yes, indeed, the Loeb scale is just trying to gauge how technological is an interstellar object and whether it poses a threat to humanity. I proposed it in July, and my hope is that it will be employed in the future as we find many more interstellar objects.
Man, listen, so thank you so very much for coming today. We're definitely going to have you back on. I hope the audience loved it. If you guys did, don't forget, follow him over on social media. Let's get his social media growing. Get over there on YouTube, follow his channel. Find Medium and go ahead and join that blog, because of course, if you love this stuff like I do, lots of information. Of course, you don't have a better expert than Avi Loeb. Professor Loeb, thank you again. You have a great day. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I had great fun, and I'll be glad to come again.
We appreciate you.
All right, you guys have a blessed day. Tomorrow's what, Wednesday? Oh, today's Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, everybody. All right, we catch you Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. for the Crypto Power Hour. Then 11 a.m. for the Big Mig Show. Avi, pleasure. Don't go nowhere. Avi, hold on.
I might have to let it drop. Sick, got a hella big head of money. Again, get like sick, hella big head of money.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA. The future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on Earth, these canine units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit warriordogfoundation.org.